everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Live Your Best Life Doing What You Love. Again, I'm Dr. Melissa J. Williams, and my students call me Dr. Mel. And so for those that are new, this channel, guys, it focuses on people who are out there in the community, living their best life, doing what they love. And I want to showcase them because I truly believe that we all have a story to tell and that we need to tell that story and share it with others to encourage others. So today, guys, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I've got one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Her name is Dr. Bindu, and she is extraordinary. So her story is unlike anyone that I've ever met. So she's different. Her niche is different, and her passion is totally different. So we're going to dive right in and talk to Dr. Bindu about who she is and what she's doing. So without further ado, Dr. Bindu.
Dr. Williams, thank you so much for inviting me to this. I'm so thankful for, I don't know, like from day one, the interactions with you have really gotten me where I am now. But my name is Bindu Kalesan. So I have been, I'm an immigrant first, but also, being in this environment, very new, all this contracting, government contracting, being on my own, wanting to build something which creates impact not only just for my life but also people around me. I've been really, really influenced and blessed by people like you, and very few, but you are one of the most prominent, and thank you so much. And my journey started off with being in the healthcare field as an epidemiologist. So epidemiologists, what we do is we design research studies, and then we conduct them, and we get that data and we analyze them. So usually an epidemiologist is like, also a biostatistician. So we do a lot of stats, and we are very much into understanding how the data works. So you can do it in two different environments. One is to actually research whether a drug or a medical device, or for that matter, any intervention works. So we're looking at the efficacy. And then in a real world setting, you can look at the effectiveness of that. So which means clinical trials usually kind of pick and choose people to enroll, right? So that means those drugs are not really being tested in populations which are, who really have the disease. They have the disease, but they're usually milder symptoms, milder version of the disease. However, real world is not like that. So you're taking data from secondary sources like electronic health records data, all that. You're taking all that data, and then you analyze that data and find those results in that real world environment.
Okay.
So, real world evidence.
That's good. So like I said, you're different from anyone that I've met, but just amazing. And so ladies out there, we're doing our thing. We're doing our thing. And so with what you do, right? As I'll say, you're a scientist, right?
Yes, I think I can call myself that.
A scientist, right? So as a scientist, I always ask everyone that I interview, like, when did you discover your superpower? Like, what age did you discover that you wanted to do something like this? And what you do, again, is amazing, and it impacts the world, not just your specific city or state, but it's a global thing that you do, which is like, I love it. I love it. So when did you discover your superpower?
So when I was little girl, I've trained to be a dentist when I was in India. My dad, though, he was like, he always kept talking to me about research. And I thought we need to be mathematically oriented. And I thought I am not mathematically oriented. My sister was. However, I picked up a stats book and I was able to understand really quickly. So, there are sometimes you have your own narratives about ourselves.
Yes.
Right. And I don't stop doing that. I keep doing that throughout. And one of the instances, when I spoke to you first, I had some narrative going on in my head, and you took out that narrative and you just pulverized it. So this was
Sorry. Sorry. I do that all the time.
no, it's a good thing. It was one of the best things that you did for me. So I think that that narrative pulverization happens in everybody's life. I've seen, at least I've heard a few people talking about that. Like, you don't realize that what you're capable of. And then something happens and then you're seeing it and you're like, wow, this can actually happen to me.
They
This is
call it the imposter syndrome. Yeah, they call it the imposter syndrome. You thinking like, who am I, to talk to people about what I do, and am I good enough? We talk about that all the time, and I think we all have that, but I love that you recognized it, but it didn't stop you.
There's a reason for that too, right? A lot of people, we still are driven by our fear. And the fear doesn't really go away from us. It just like really burrows into us sometimes, right? So we have to take it out one by one, or sort of exercise that fear out of our bodies, right?
Yes,
And we don't have the people around you to give us the strength to do that. We have to do it ourselves,
yes,
right? So I really think throughout my entire life, there was a mentor, whether I had known, I was not aware of maybe, but also sometimes I'm very much aware of. Like later on, I realized who I need in my life is a mentor, the right mentor.
right,
So I think that is so important. And we tend to sort of isolate from everybody and just put our heads down and work really hard, because all we women, that's what we know. We know how to work hard very
right.
well, but we don't know how to open up, be vulnerable to women around us,
Yes.
and accept help gracefully, and provide, nobody is going to take over our businesses. Nobody can do what we are capable of.
Right,
We have to be ready to be vulnerable, to say, okay, sometimes you're going to fail, and sometimes you're going to talk to somebody to have a collaboration, and they're going to say no, and that's okay. You know
right.
what? Because there's a better thing out there. And that is
Yes,
also part of the thing that you told me. There's something better out there.
yes,
Your no's doesn't define you. The yeses are the ones that define you. And sometimes it takes time.
right. And so I love that about you, because you don't, or you haven't given up.
No.
And a lot of people, they face a roadblock and they quit, they give up. It's about, I played basketball in high school and college. It's about that follow through, right?
Ah,
It's about that follow through. So I want to get back into who you are and
yeah.
what you do, because again, it's science, and
Mhm.
like my brain still hurts when I'm trying to understand everything that you do. So as a scientist, you're working in the health field, you're collecting data, you're doing research studies, correct?
That's exactly what we do. We also do public health programs. So, sometimes, let's say there is a lot of violence in certain communities, right? So public health would mean you create such a program that's called as public health programming. And then we can also evaluate those programs. When you have a public health program, right, that public health program has to be evaluated. So that's called as a program evaluation. So both of my awards that I won is in public health evaluation. So we evaluate certain programs from different state governments, federal governments. They all need evaluations. And there are several methods to do that. So we do specifically a CDC type of evaluation, which is not what all the evaluators do. They just do a quick and dirty work, but not all of them. But we like to take the scientifically rigorous approach. And I found that that really works in some of the agency that I'm working with. They really like my approach, the way I do it. It's very, very scientific. We collect data. There's both primary data collection, secondary data collection, etc. So we also did something. So right now, that digital world is just burgeoning, right? So there's a lot of growth there. And there are several AI related solutions around. So we think, oh, there you go. This AI related solution is just one solution. It's implemented. People don't really worry about, oh, does this work? Is it working the way it is supposed to work, right? So these evaluations have not been conducted. So what we've also done is devised a way of evaluating these technologies, not in the way that current technological evaluation are being done, but taking it in the public health route and really superimposing the principles of program evaluation into this AI technology evaluation so that it benefits mankind.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so can you kind of just talk to me about maybe, you don't have to tell me everything, but I want to know as much as I can, a real life maybe study that you've done. And
Yeah,
later we'll talk about the contracts that you won. But let's talk about maybe a real life evaluation or study or some type of
yeah.
research that you've done.
So I can actually combine the two. So our current ongoing evaluation, which just completed, so I can talk about that, right? So there was a small evaluation that we did for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. And this was about, they had implemented a program called as Equitable Approaches to Public Safety, which means about policing in the US, right? So a lot of times, in fact, 70 to 80% of the times when police are called for a certain situation to people's, to the community,
Mhm.
it is not related to violence.
Hmm.
It is mostly related to mental health issues,
Oh, wow.
right? Public health, and someone's having a fight, all those. So it's like we are using we're using a sword to really tease out something which we can use a spoon for, right? So we've been really using the police force for wrong purposes. So they decided, let's do an experiment and let's create an alternative policing. It's a bad term though, but it's mostly about community health, providing community health to people. So having these responders do community health rather than sending somebody in full police gear, right? And Massachusetts actually implemented that across 6 different municipalities. And since it was being done for the first time in Massachusetts, they thought they will do a pilot. So their whole program was doing it for a year, seeing how it worked, what did not work. So we came in after 1 year, we evaluated that program, and we give them a report saying that this worked. Certain things, like out of the 6, these many actually had implemented the program really well, and these many were not able to because of these reasons, X, Y, and Z reasons, so that now they know the next step that they need to take is to implement what programs for specifically in the state of Massachusetts.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And as you talked about that, my mind went immediately to an incident that happened.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where it happened, but it was a gentleman that went into a hotel or something like that recently, and he was having a mental episode or something like that. He ended up dying. So I like the fact that you have done research and studies to understand that mental health is real. It's real, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done research to talk about how, I guess, the impact that mental health has in
Yeah.
recent years over the last 10 years. I don't know. Have you done anything like that?
Yes. So one of my areas of interest, areas of focus, research focus is mental health, but in combination with, you know, different types of trauma, right? Trauma is what causes us to have mental health conditions that need to be treated. And I'm just going to say this too, because I have personal history as well. So this is this is kind of really very personal to me. So I'm known as a gun violence researcher. So I've studied gun violence extensively. I'm a TEDx speaker as well. So I've given a talk on what it is to be a survivor of these violence, right? So there's a lot of stigma involved around, once you have a violence exposure, there's a big stigma associated with that because people see you as a criminal, even though you're a survivor, right? And there's no criminality associated at all. And the medical community calls somebody who's been re-traumatized, so second time they've been shot, just because they've been living in an area where there is high crime, they are called recidivist, which implies recidivism. That
Okay.
implies criminality. And in reality, that's not the case, right? So basically, there is a whole system around us which is constantly traumatizing us, right?
Okay.
Not just what we do, but so that's what we call as built environment or the social determinants of health, right? So if we live in environments that have poor indicators or difficult indicators, then those indicators have an effect on us and therefore deteriorates our own health, right? So where we live matters. How we live matters. There's a whole lot of different interconnected things that matter. So I study a whole lot of that as well. And also, suicide among veterans, suicide in the rural communities. So we've identified certain, around suicides can actually really have hotspots. So you'd think that's not the case, but there are indicators like, environmental indicators that show a greater risk. And
Mm,
that's because, it could be certain, it's not just high crime alone. So we looked at rural communities alone and we did machine learning, spatial and analytics and machine learning, and we identify what kind of rural communities will have a higher incidence of suicides
wow.
with a gun as opposed to and what are the communities where the risk using guns are lower. So
Interesting.
it all impinges around mental health. So along with mental health it's always related to substance use, right? And
Always? You said always.
well, there is a component. Now I take that back. It's not, there is, so substance use is a very difficult topic because we think about it as opioid alone,
Say it
right?
again.
We think about it as opioid.
Okay.
Everything is related to opioid, but that's not the only substance use. There's alcohol.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of factors that we don't really explicitly consider as substance use when we talk about it, right? So I wouldn't say always, but there is an interrelationship between substance use and mental health. And we've seen that those who use substances, we think, oh, they're using substances. That's because of their mental health conditions. That
Mm,
is a reason why they resort to substance use. And plus, when you look at healthcare environment, what do you see? We spend a whole lot of money, the most amount of money in the entire world on providing healthcare, and yet our health outcomes are abysmally poor,
yeah.
right?
So
Why
yeah.
is that the case?
So why is that? Keep going.
Multiple things, again, because everything is nuanced, and we like to believe, at least our brain likes to believe, that, oh, there is one little factor for all of us that we can tweak and control and we can fix that problem. That is not the case. So we will have individual risk factors. We have, around our house, immediate risk factors, in our community risk factors, all that play a role, and the genetics, right?
Wow.
So there's a whole lot of risk factors that are in play when we consider all these important diseases that goes on in our human body. And we don't really take time or the energy to really understand that, especially when you speak about it in terms of educating people. And researchers do that. Researchers know that, but researchers don't really go into the communities or provide health communication, which makes an impact. And that is called as health literacy. right? Improving health literacy in people, which is also very, very, it's a focus of mine. And what I want to do is create these really good AI powered chatbots for people to really understand their health. Because how many times, like my husband's parents, like they go to the doctor and they don't even know the full name of their diagnosis. So they have, if they have a heart attack, they're like, okay, what kind of heart attack did you have? What kind of stent are they going to place? They have no idea. The doctors don't provide that information. So doctors have a reason. They always say, oh, we don't have time for that. So is that okay? They would say, yeah, we don't have time. We'll give them a paperwork. So there's been studies which shows that none of the patients read the paperwork that the doctors give them. Even after surgery, they're given a bunch of papers and this is your aftercare. Read this. Nobody has ever read
Mhm. Yeah. So wow, wow, this is amazing. And again, you are amazing. And I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be here today. Live your best life doing what you love. You've touched on so many things that I want to talk about because you know that I'm a veteran. I served in Kuwait, and my father was a veteran, and he served in Vietnam. And so, just we may have to come back and do this again because
them. Yes.
we're going down so many roads that is something that we should talk about and we should understand. But if there are, okay, so my company or my organization, the Veteran Support Network, we also was formed to assist veterans with the challenges that they have. And I understand and I recognize, like, if you've been in a war, I was in Kuwait, if you've been in Vietnam, if you've been in Afghanistan, mental health is real. Those veterans that have, decided that they were going to possibly give their life for their country, and then they come back from, a war zone, they have issues and challenges. And so I love the fact, I love it that you are doing things to help and support the veterans, because of course that's like so dear to my heart. And then that there's studies out there that also recognize that, I think you said the environment plays a part. There's so many, you said there's so many indicators, I'm going to say indicators or factors that play a part in mental health, substance abuse, so those are things I guess that we got to talk about, because we just say, oh, they're crazy or they're having issues. Why are they having these issues?
Exactly. The root cause.
The root
The
cause.
root cause, rather than going with a little band-aid and say, you know what, let me just give you a medication. Just swallow the medication, you'll be fine. No, we never do that. The root cause of all these diseases. But sorry, I interrupted you.
No. That's amazing, because what you do as a researcher is amazing, and people need to understand that what goes into your research. You're not just looking at the surface area of something, right? You're going deeper and you're diving down and you're trying to say, why is this happening? So that's amazing. So talk to me now about your experience. You guys know this channel is about living your best life, doing what you love.
Yes.
And I love government contracting. I've been doing it for 32 years. And I met you as one of my mentees.
Yes.
And I think you were working on some government contracts, and you landed some. So talk to me about that, because I tell small business owners, right? I tell them that if you're wanting to stabilize your business,
Yes.
right? If you're wanting to either grow and scale, you can be a new business or you can be a seasoned business. And I'm telling folks what I've done. I know it works. This I know for sure it works. If you're wanting to stop selling to one customer at a time, the best vehicle that I know is to do government contracting. And I speak about local, state, and federal contracting. And so you've done that.
Yes, I did it with your help. I remember having that call. So prior to you entering my life, I was lucky enough that, the university that I worked with earlier, I was a professor there, and I had a contract there. I had a grant there, and they subcontracted me to finish that. So
Did you
I,
say a grant?
yeah, I have my own grant from DOJ through the
Okay.
university when I was working there. And, if I leave, that grant would not be completed. So they needed somebody, of course, it needed to be completed, and I knew it best. So they subcontracted me onto that grant, and I completed that research. Okay, so that became my very first project for the company. So I got lucky. And the truth was, I did not know that could be used as a prior experience. So
Past performance.
yes, past performance, exactly. I didn't know that. You know who told me this? You. You told me this.
Okay.
Yeah, you told me this. So that was the first thing that you told me about. Like, nope, that is past performance. You cannot minimize that. Because I remember telling you that, oh, that's a small project. It was just $50,000. And it's not something that I will even put in there. You said, nope, stop it. Stop it right there. And you said that is what you want to play with. And I played exactly. I really think a lot of people don't, they probably do have mentors. But one thing I think what I did this time, and it worked, was I took down each and everything you asked me to do. And then I devised a plan and I did it one by one. And I'm not saying it was easy. It was very tough. But after doing all that, I wasn't sure whether it'll work, to be honest with you. I wasn't sure. And to be honest, I was not even doing really good job on writing a contract either, because I learned that, okay, slow down, write it properly. And later on, I found out, and I think whatever got funded was not a great example of what I would write now. Right. That I know, so I'm happy the way it turned out, but I think you should sort of have like a blind faith in what you do. It should be like completely blind. I just said, okay, she's successful. A successful person gave me a pathway to do this. I'm implementing. I'm an implementer, right? Now, okay, so I got a contract vehicle with Mass. And then right after that, a month later, I got two more.
Say it again. You said a month later.
Yeah. And I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic. And so on the side, I was also working, I got another contract with another pharmaceutical company doing biostatistical services, and another contract with being a subcontractor to another contractor for another pharmaceutical company, creating apps, all that. So literally, I implemented the things that you told me to do. So I was spreading myself thin at that point. And then I was also writing proposals to apply for these several bids. And so this is where, I'm going to tell you that the first half was great, right? So I won a few and they were very good. I was happy. Now, after that, I think I'm very good at program evaluation. I'm very rigorous. I'm scientifically rigorous. Proposals are all what I'm submitting. I didn't get anyone after that. And there were ones that I'd spent so much time and energy and all that, and I pour into that and write it. But this is what was different. I really thought I was going to get some of them, and I didn't get it. Someone else got it. So I always go and research those people who got the
yes,
right? And I learned from what they did, like
yes,
what they're doing, what they did, and almost all of them were like 30 years on the field, and we're like what, 2 years, not even, So I decided I'm gonna give myself a break. And it's okay to not win these things. You don't win everything. Maybe it is that I do not want to win it. It is not going to be good for me to win those things, right? So, and then I thought that, okay, second thing that I need to do is now evaluate, right? So if things go wrong, or I wouldn't say wrong, if things are not working the way that we want to be, evaluate what went wrong. right? So there are several ways of evaluation. So I look at who won it, etc. But now I heard from your podcast that you had another guest earlier who's a proposal writer. So, you're out there providing all these resources to people. So it is up to us to understand, okay, there you go. She's providing another resource. Find her. So I wrote to her to see what I want her to do, if she's willing, is to look at the proposals that I've written. Tell me what went wrong. What does a really good proposal now look like? I'm ready for that. And these proposals, I don't want to do that in the federal level. Federal level, I want to be a subcontractor. And, hence I came to you again, asking for help. And you were ready and you gave me another path now. So in my mind, I'm gearing up to implement that. How will I do that? How will I change my life accordingly? Right? So that is, I think, more important. Foundationally, something that you taught me. We have to be ready for the changes that we are going to implement so that we'll have the perseverance and the audacity to actually do it.
Yes, yes. I love it because, again, you're that different one. You're that different student but you're a consultant, but a researcher, a scientist. So what I tell people is that regardless of what industry you're in, what product or service that you have, the government buys what you're selling, what you provide. And I think I say this all the time, is that you're that A++ student, because success is a system, government contracting is a system. So it's steps that you need to take if you want to be successful. I talk to young people too, and I tell them, you can't get up at 11 o'clock and start your day, right? The early bird does get the worm, right? And that you have to be consistent and you have to have determination, all of that. I understand that sometimes it's hard, but what's encouraging about you is that your niche is so different. It's research, it's scientific, and for a second, because I don't want to go away from this, talk to me about, because I saw your website, I think just recently, talk to me about each of the aspects of research that you engage in, because I need our viewers to understand that it doesn't matter. It's somebody else out there that's like you, that's into research, that's utilizing AI, utilizing machine learning. And I'm going to connect you too with another person that is really excellent at writing proposals, right? I'm going to connect you. You just made me think of something else. But talk to me about those different areas that you actually have expertise in that I saw on your website yesterday.
Yeah. So when I say me, I probably shouldn't say me. It's my company, TRC, right? So there are 20.
And what's the name of your company?
Tury Research Consulting, TURY Research Consulting. It's actually after Alan Turing, and Turing was taken. So we decided to go with Turing. He's a mathematician, but he's also very much marginalized, and he eventually killed himself. I know that's probably not the best thing to say, but he was marginalized,
Mental health is real.
Yeah, again, the mental health component to that. So what I do, or what we do collectively, is both medical research, which includes clinical research, real world research. That's one part. And then we also do public health research, public health programs and evaluation. And then we design and implement AI technologies, generative AI technologies, in life sciences and in public health. So everything is about public health and life sciences, which is, clinical research. So to be more precise there, so we design research study. So you remember we were talking about what are the kind of research studies we do, right? But we also need to have a rigorous research design so that we don't have any biases. Not any bias, we got to minimize these biases, right? So having the right research design for the specific research question that we're asking, having a hypothesis, all that. So we create those research designs, we create protocols for those research, and So you have to be a really huge company at some point, maybe we will, to implement these research clinical trials. That's what called a CRO, it's clinical research organizations. We don't have the bandwidth to do that, but we can always help CROs to come up with really novel, very innovative study protocols.
Did you say CROs?
Yes, CROs is clinical research organization. So you must have heard about these organizations like PPD, IQVIA, and all that. So these are the huge organizations. What they do is they work with pharmaceutical companies and they test their drugs with clinical trials. And
like Johnson and Johnson, maybe?
Yes. So what they do is they will work with a CRO because they want it to be unbiased, right? So someone else will study their drug. And then that is when the FDA says, okay, these results look good, and now we can approve your drug.
Got it.
That is how that cycle happens, right? So we don't have the bandwidth because collecting data and doing it rigorously for a clinical trial, it's very hard to do that. It requires a big infrastructure. I am a trained trialist. I know how to do it, but so I know what the big infrastructure. I don't have the money or the thing to do that, infrastructure to do that. So I don't do that because we are a small company. We do consulting, right? So that's where we help companies design research studies if they have a device or a drug. And then we also can help them in analyzing this data. Sometimes they want it independently analyzed, the data. So we can do that too. So that is a clinical trial world. I'm less interested in clinical trials because it follows a formula, right? It's very rigorous and it's creative in its own way, but I like mostly the real world research because in clinical trials, the people who are selected to be participants are usually having a very less severe form of the disease. And also the diversity representation is very poor in clinical trials. So Black and brown people are not adequately represented in clinical trials. However, using real world research, which means collecting data from different electronic health records and all that, and then analyzing that data, that will give us a better idea. Okay. And even now, we're not that very good at making these clinical trials representative or even real world evidence for that matter. So we have a long way to go. And I have a very, very strong interest in that because, as being an Indian person, I find that most of the drugs which are on the market, we don't know whether that works for Indian people because our metabolism is different. It's the same thing with Black Americans. Very few Black Americans are involved in clinical trials. And
why is that? Why is that?
Structural problems, number one. Problems with racism, and there's a bunch of literature on that. The doctors mainly think that they want to assign people. So how are clinical trials implemented? So they will have several sites, clinical sites. Okay, so clinical sites means there'll be a doctor who will be treating. So think about it in terms of there is a new drug for atrial fibrillation when your heart flutters. You know that, right?
Say it again.
Atrial fibrillation.
Okay.
Atrial fibrillation. Let's say there's a new drug. So they'll go around looking for cardiologists, right? That is where they get the patients. They need to enroll patients at those sites. Those become the clinical trial sites. Now, at the sites, the doctors are going to be like, okay, they will have different patients. And there are studies showing that how doctors select mostly white Americans rather than people of color because they think they might not do the follow-up, complete the follow-up, or they have several biases. So it's all listed there. And it starts directly from there, that the doctors do not even invite them for clinical trials, right? So I had done a quick market research on understanding among Black women who are diagnosed of breast cancer to understand whether they have even been approached for joining a clinical trial. None of them said that they have even been given an option. And all of them have been treated in sites where there are ongoing oncology trials, breast cancer trials. So that is the way of the world. And we have to do a whole lot to change that. And FDA does provide guidelines on it. And guidelines doesn't mean anything. Guidelines means, oh, here you go. Here are some things that you could do to improve your representation in clinical trials, right? So the popular belief is that, okay, if you take Black and brown people into clinical trials, they'll have much advanced stage of the disease. So it is less likely that the drug will show efficacy if you have advanced stage of the disease, right? So earlier, my whole, I really wanted to reduce that, improve representation in clinical trials and research studies by Black and brown people so that we know it works for us. Because you look at the Indian community, what we see is we have a lot of metabolic disorders. We have diabetes, we have hypertension, all that. Hypertension drugs don't really work for us. It makes us, woozy, and it doesn't. We end up not taking it because it doesn't make us feel good. There are problems to that, right? Nobody has understood why. None of the hypertensive drugs on the market have been tested in Indian population to know that it works in Indian population. Neither have it been tested. Yes. So this is a very problematic approach that we've taken right from the get-go, and it still keeps continuing, even though FDA says, oh, efforts have been started. But this is where it happens, right? So organically, you go into the Black communities and you ask them, there are people who really want to participate in these trials, but US has a very bad history of mistreating Black Americans. And those things run deep. And what is the government doing about it? So as you rightly pointed out, root cause. Yeah. What are we doing about the root cause? We are doing nothing about the root cause, right? So I think, people talk about allyship and all that in very negative terms, but I think it is important that not only white communities should be studied, and that is great. What I'm saying is you should give equal importance to studying Black and brown communities. Equal representation. Because you look at the rest of the world, Caucasian population accounts for what, 5%, right? Black and brown population inhabits most of the world. And these drugs, which are found to be efficacious in white population, is later on going into different parts of the world.
I love it.
So there's...
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about because we've got a lot of things that we've got to improve and work on. But at least what I'm happy about is that you're out there in the trenches and you're doing the research. You understand what's wrong, and you're, because I say it just takes one, guys, it just takes one person that understands that I need to change this or I need to affect this in order for us to see change. And so that's amazing that you're doing that. So just want to segue a little bit, like when you look at, I guess, your avatar, who is your avatar? Like who would purchase your services? And when I say that, we understand that, government contracting is a way. We understand that. We understand that government contracting could be local, state, and or federal. So when you are, I guess, looking for someone to purchase your services, what does that avatar look like? Who would be interested in what you do?
Yeah. So within the government CDC, there could be principal investigators who are running intramural programs, and they would need people to implement these programs, do data analysis, work with them to create protocols, research study protocols, etc. That is on one side, right? So that's the life sciences part of it. And then the public health departments, like Department of Public Health, also the deputy commissioners, the program officials, etc. So what do they want? They want to improve the health of the community. So in order to improve the health of the community, they have to do two things. They have to implement certain public health programs. So they have to create it, and they have to implement it, and they have to study it, whether it's going on. So we complete the whole pathway. in these two areas. So this is where our focus is. And of course, the AI part of it is kind of like now AI is everywhere. You can use AI in both these areas, like in machine learning, both in public health as well as life sciences. In public health, there's less because they are very slow to adopt these AI parts of it. But that is somewhere that is a place I'm most interested. That's my area of interest, is to improve health literacy of people. As in, people should have that command over their health. They need to know things. They need to ask the right questions. So that is like my personal mission. So I want to do that with technology. And hopefully I want to get funded with the government. I think that is where the government can really excel and put in funding to improve people's health by empowering people to know about their own health. Because there's enough evidence showing that health literacy costs us money. Poor health literacy is costing us money. We are losing billions of dollars because of poor health literacy.
I love it. I love it. So I don't know if you caught that, but as you told me who your avatar is, that was like another homework assignment, right? That I was giving you.
Yeah.
And what I want you to know is I want you to make sure you're always thinking about who is that avatar. And I always have my students to do a Dream 100, right? I don't know if I gave you that assignment.
No, you did not. Tell
Okay,
me.
I'm giving it to you now. So your Dream 100, would who would want your services, right? And you kind of gave me some people just now. But then also I would say to you, think about the job description or the title, their job title, right? So that you understand that, hey, one of the people that would be looking for me might be a researcher, I don't know, developer. I'm not sure. But, you know, that's a way that you can continue to define and redefine who needs your services, right? Because what you do, again, it's truly needed. And we have the CDC here in Georgia. And I actually won a contract at the CDC. Yeah, I won a contract. And so what you need to do is think about that role at CDC, those job titles or that would need what you need, you know. But anyway, I'm teaching a class now, but
Love it.
that's what you need to continue to do as a researcher and a scientist. But before we end, right? Because we're gonna have to come back because we talked about so many things that's true and dear to my heart: mental health, the veterans, you know, the research, the clinical trials, inclusion versus exclusion. You know, one shoe doesn't fit all sizes, right? You know, so we're gonna have to come back again. And we're gonna do a follow-up. But as we close, what I'm gonna ask you this question. So what would you tell your 18-year-old you if you could talk to that person? What would you tell that person? Just a philosophy of life.
That is I'm almost getting emotional about it because very late found out that I'm neurodivergent, and my 18-year-old self did not know I am neurodivergent.
What does that mean?
And I have autistic traits. So, and I'm atypical too. So I'm still learning about myself, you know. So at that point in time, when I was 18, I did not know what my emotions, I didn't know what I was feeling. And that threw a lot of difficulties for me. So now that I'm looking back, you asked me that question and I'm thinking, I would just tell her, like, it's okay if you don't know. And if someone, and for that matter, I think people did not, it was difficult for me to communicate to other people socially. I was very, very awkward. I still am. But I had to undergo a lot of pressure and tribulations, I think, to get to where I am. And I wish someone would have told me at that point in time that this, like a warning, like life is not fair. It's going to crumble around you. But you know what? your own North Star is you. Nobody told me that. Like, I am my own lighthouse.
Yes.
And that's something I think I got it from you. And I think that, imagine this late in my life to know that I am my own North Star.
Mhm. Yeah, you're making me get emotional too. So, yeah, and I think that's why I love this channel, because we all, again, have something to offer. Our story is going to touch someone, because someone out there has experienced something similar to what we've experienced, right? But what's most important is that I like that. I am my own North Star. I like that. I'm gonna use that, because life will throw us challenges, right? It will knock us down, but we have to understand in our heart, in ourselves, and that's why I tell people to live your life in your passion, not in, my life is not like your life, right? I have similarities. I can tell you that because I'm a woman, you're a woman. You know what I'm saying? I'm a brown skin, you're a brown skin. So we have similarities, but we have to live our life truly in our passion. I tell people, and they know it, I don't do anything that I don't love doing, right? But I learned that later in life. Live your best life doing what you love. You only have one life. And I do believe it's important to share your story with someone, because they will be able to relate and say, oh, I thought something was wrong with me. No, you know what I'm saying? It's not. Other people are feeling the challenges or have the challenges as well. But I love it so much. I love it so much. So I don't want to get too emotional, but because you're making me emotional, but I want you to share with the audience, like, how can they find you? How can they
Oh,
find you on social media, your website? How can they even reach out to you? Because I know there's going to be some people that want to connect, and I'm going to connect you to a group of people too.
yeah.
So how can they find you?
So I'm easily available on the internet. So if you just do Kalesan Bindu, Bindu, Kalesan, Kalesan, you can Google me, you can find me. But you can also find me at Kalesan at Turi Research, Tury, research, research.com. You can find me there as well. And, I'm on LinkedIn. I try not to be too much on other social medias because it's getting me to a point of it's bothering me a little too much. So I'm stepping back and just focusing on my work.
Yes, yes. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right. So
Thank
we're
you
gonna
so
wrap it
much.
up. Live your best life, guys, doing what you love. This was amazing. Take care. God bless. And remember, again, you only have one life, so live it to its fullest. All right. Stay healthy, happy, and God bless.
You
Bye.